Hi all, Nick from Triskel Labs here. I want to take a quick moment today to talk about everyone's favorite topic, and that is patching. Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say patching, it's been done to death. Everyone knows that they need to go and patch all of their systems. Unfortunately, the Triskel Labs incident response team have spent the last 40 hours conducting incident response based on a client that's been compromised due to an insecure WordPress plugin. Now, a specific WordPress plugin was implemented on a client system that had a known RCE vulnerability that an attacker has been able to identify and upload a malicious PHP script that they've then been able to use for lateral movement throughout the environment. When we think about patching, so often we think about Windows systems or firewalls, network devices, anything that's externally facing. Very often, we quickly forget about the additional systems we need to take into account. Now, unfortunately, this isn't the only investigation that we've done, especially over the COVID period. We're seeing a lot of attacks take place because attackers have a lot more time. They know that we are taken with other priorities and other tasks of operational and keeping the lights on. At the start of COVID, we conducted some incident response based on a RCE vulnerability that was exploited on a Tomcat instance. Again, the attacker found this RCE vulnerability, they were able to exploit it, and this time get ransomware onto the web server. And if you'd watched Cybears last week, you'd learn all about ransomware and where that comes from and how to stop it. So, how do we protect against this? Obviously, we need to make sure that we're taking all of our externally facing systems and internal facing systems, of course, into account when we're designing our patching program. Our patching program must be supported by a vulnerability scanning solution that is identifying these vulnerabilities on an ongoing basis. Now, at times, you're going to have systems that you can't patch. It might be an outdated operating system that is no longer supported that you need to have because of some legacy software. It's so very important then to make sure that you've got compensating controls in place. For instance, logging. S3 storage is now so cheap that you can literally store terabytes and terabytes of logs for minimal cost. Obviously, then putting them through a seam to identify any malicious activity that might be identified, not just relying on having the logs there and having available, because obviously the best prevention of an attack is to make sure that you're continually defending and identifying these levels of attacks. Obviously, making sure that you've got layers of defense in place, blocking all outbound internet connectivity. So if there is an attack on the system and a malicious user puts a command and control malware onto that web server, it can't communicate outbound. Making sure you've only got the relevant levels of outbound connectivity, and then obviously other security tools such as a WAF, which will identify and stop a lot of activity. Obviously, a WAF isn't the be all and end all, but it should be part of a defense in depth solution. And then obviously making sure that you're conducting ongoing penetration testing. So your testing schedule should take into account all of your external facing systems and not just limiting the scope to say, no, we just want to focus on this one little piece, but taking a holistic view across the environment. This should be able to make sure that you get a very solid and a very robust patching mechanism in place. And you don't need to go through what our client has just gone through in the last 40 hours of having to conduct incident response and contacting insurers and informing the board there's been a potential compromise, because let me tell you right now that that's the last thing you want to be doing. So thank you for a quick listen today, and hopefully you've learnt something, and reach out to us if you need any help.